How do socialist countries like North Korea stay afloat for decades despite having incredibly inefficient economic systems? Let's get into it. The North Korean government officially announced that they were a socialist economy in 1958. Shortly after that, in the 70s, their economy separated from the South Korean economy in terms of GDP per capita. The South Koreans were now richer.
How do you do an entire video about the North Korean economy and not mention that the US has kept them under the second most stringent economic sanctions in human history for the last 70 years? Even former US President Jimmy Carter acknowledges this.
And the North Koreans have suffered because the United States has done everything we possibly could to destroy the economy of North Korea. We've done everything we possibly could to boost the economy of South Korea.
You also conveniently neglect to mention that the US destroyed this much smaller country with bombs. American Air Force General Curtis LeMay estimated that the US unalived 20% of their population and destroyed every building over 2 stories tall. This is what a lot of the North Korean infrastructure looked like after the Korean War. And then after this, after all of their farms and infrastructure were bombed, the US put them under these sanctions that prevent them from trading with the rest of the world. Well, except for countries who refused to bow to US imperial hegemony like the USSR, but as you mentioned, they collapsed in the 90s. And even still, the DPRK has managed to remain sovereign and independent without the massive lifeline that South Korea has in the form of US aid. The reason that they've opened up to more privatization isn't because privatization is inherently better. It's to circumnavigate the sanctions and get more resources into the country despite the stranglehold. And you could call this the China path, which most socialist countries were forced to follow after the collapse of the USSR. The US also did things like paid South Koreans to run across the border and cut off cow tails so that they couldn't be used for agriculture. They really did everything to starve this country, and Ben just completely leaves that out of his video. Why fight against the US empire when you could just do propaganda for them in their effort to destroy much smaller countries? There's no libertarian think tank money to be made in that.